You're listening to Radio Lewes, where the music matters. Welcome back to The Rock Show. My name's Ben Fuller. This week's show is dedicated to a very short period of time, 1979 to 1985, and the new wave of British heavy metal. There's a lot of bands on today's list you probably won't be familiar with. I certainly wasn't. And there's some of them you just are going to ask yourself, why on earth didn't they do better? We're going to start with Diamond Head and the Prince. There you go. That was the Prince from Diamond Head, one of the most influential early metal bands, and also one of the least successful, which is amazing, really. If it hadn't been for Diamond Head, Metallica would probably sound very, very different. They've been cited as one of their major influences. The band was formed in 1976 by Brian Tatler and Duncan Scott when they were basically messing around with a biscuit tin drum kit and a borrowed guitar in Brian's bedroom. But Brian Tatler really has been a massive influence on Metallica. They've covered several of their songs, including that one. And they should have been a lot more influential. Well, certainly a lot more successful. They've certainly been influential. Next, a band that a lot of people just think sound like Iron Maiden. They do, but that doesn't mean they're not any good. This is Fist and Brain Damage. You know, I'm not even sure what album that was from, but Fist were formed in 1978 and were definitely part of the original new wave of British heavy metal. They carried on till 1982, when I think they quit just because Iron Maiden were better and they just weren't selling any records. But they did come back for a short period, 2001 to 2006. But the news is, from 2013, they reformed and they're still here. So I'm just going to have a quick look at their discography and see how many albums they've done. You might not be surprised to realise there's not many. So Brain Damage either came from Turn the Hell On from 1980 or Back with a Vengeance from 1982. Their only other full studio album to date is called Storm, and that was April 2005. They have 4 singles. Brain Damage wasn't one of them. And there's been a few compilations. But Fist are still around. And if they still sound like that, it might be worth having a nosy and seeing if any of it's any good. Now the one that I don't think ever was going to make it, but I'm going to play it anyway. This is a band called Angel Witch and a song called Loser. There you go, that was Angel Witch. Now, they've managed 4 albums, and apparently they are still around, since 2008 at least. They've broken up and got back together more often than most bands that would have bothered to. 1978 they started. The only thing they're really known for is inspiring Lars Ulrich to form Metallica. So along with Diamond Head, they're another inspiration on Metallica. But they just couldn't stay together. 78 to 81. Then they came back briefly in 1982. They had another go in 84, and that fizzled out in 1998. So there was a fair run at it. But in all that time, they only put out 4 albums. It's sad, really. They are not the best band in the world. And I think, like Diamond Head, they may well have just fallen foul of MCA Records. They always seem to sign these young bands and then try and mould them into something they weren't, make them more commercial. And that happens far too often. It really does. So many acts get ruined when record labels interfere in what they do musically. Although, to be fair, Angel Witch do seem to have needed some interference. It just went the wrong way. Next is a band called Samson, and this is a great track. I love this one. This is Vice Versa.
Say things to astound the dirtiest mind. Oh, she looks so healthy. Wow, she looks so clean. But when you got to fight her, what's she
from 1980 and the album Head On. And if you recognise the vocalist there, that was Bruce Dickinson indeed, before he joined Iron Maiden. They were known for their first 3 albums with Bruce Dickinson, then known as Bruce Bruce, and drummer Thunderstruck, real name Barry Graham Purkis, who wore a leather gimp mask and performed on stage in a metal cage. Drummer Clive Burr was also a member of the band, both before and after his tenure with Iron Maiden. Drummer Mel Gaynor had a successful music career, being a member of Simple Minds for over 20 years. And Dickinson's replacement on vocals, Nicky Moore, performed with Samson throughout the mid-80s and again from the late 90s onwards. And he's been a member of bands Mammoth and Nicky Moore and the Blues Corporation. And Samson managed to keep ticking along until 2002. I'm just going to check out their discography. Now, they did much better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 albums and a few live albums, lots of singles. I don't know why I haven't heard of them before. I thought I knew about Bruce Dickinson's career, but there we are. You learn something new every day, and I'm very happy to have learned that. Next is another good one. This is Raven and Tyrant of the Airwaves. Wow, what a way to end. From 1981 and their debut album, Rock Until You Drop. Raven were formed in 1974 and they didn't get an album out till 81, but they are still around. Their most recent album was from 2015 and it's called Extermination. But the news is they have a new drummer and a new album is in the works. Now, I've not heard of them before, so I am going to go looking for some of their stuff because I think they're good. In fact, they've got a possibility of being great, so we'll see how they go. And if I like it, I'll play you some more. Next band is called Elixir, and this is The Winds of Time.
Now I'm standing
They only just got into the new wave of British heavy metal, really. They were formed in 1983, and they didn't have their first album until 1986. So by then, the new wave was sort of over, and it was just heavy metal or British heavy metal. From what I can make out, though, that comes from that album, and it's called The Son of Odin from 1986. Apparently, the band got their name when Steve Bentley closed his eyes and put his finger on a word in a dictionary at random. That's a risky way to name your band. If he'd only fallen a few pages further towards the front, they might have been called Constipation. You never know what's going to happen when you try doing something like that. You certainly shouldn't decide to stick with it if you come up with the wrong name. But they were around from 83 to 2012 before they finally called it a day. They didn't really have that much success. They only spawned 2 singles in that time, and they were 20 years apart. So make of it what you will. I'm really not going to go looking for stuff by Elixir. It was worth hearing just because it's part of the new wave thing, but I won't be listening to any more. Next is a band called Satan. That's subtle. And a song called Pull the Trigger.
Now you set up the lights,
Well, what a way to end the song. Now, they are an interesting band. They started in 1979 in Newcastle, and of course were known as part of the new wave of British heavy metal. But the band is considered influential for playing a form of proto-thrash speed metal that was fairly advanced by the standards of the early 80s. I'm going to read you some of this because it's interesting stuff. The lineup has undergone a number of personnel changes and even name changes. For a time, the band was called Blind Fury, putting out one album. That was 1985's Out of Reach, under that moniker before reverting to Satan. In 1988, the group changed its name to Pariah, releasing 2 albums under that name before folding in the early 90s. And then in 1998, Pariah released another album. But the band's shifting lineup included members of many other heavy metal bands, such as Blitzkrieg, Atomkraft, Avenger, Persian Risk, Kronos, and Battle Axe. And in 1990, Steve Ramsey guitar and Graham English bass, together with singer Martin, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name and I don't want to mess it up, of the UK thrash metal band Sabbath, founded folk metal band Skyclad. So there's a real influence this band has. Satan performed a one-off gig in Germany's Wacken Open Air concert in 2004 and finally reunited again in 2011. And since their reunion, the band has performed at several European festivals and released a new album, which is Life Sentence. And in April 2013, it was on Listenable Records in April 2013. And they're still going now. Now, I don't know whether Satan is the best name for a band, but it seems to have hung around, as have they. I am going to check them out and see if I can find some more for you. We'll move on now. This is another band with a subtle name. This is Demon Pact and Escape. Well, there you go. I'm very tempted to take a leaf out of Nick Cooper's book and call that Wince of the Week. That was horrible. And it never made an album either. Demon Pack don't seem to have hung around very long. They had a couple of demos in 1980, and they had a single called Eaten Alive in 1981. But they just didn't hang around. They changed the name to Ferris Wolf, it appears, and they were around till 1982. That particular song you can find on an album, or at least a compilation, called Released from Hell, and that was from 2010. I can't say anymore. I don't want to say anymore. We're going to carry on with Dark Star and Captain America. There you are. Now, that weren't bad at all, but Dark Star didn't last, I'm afraid. They were best known for their one hit single, Lady of Mars, which featured on the compilation Metal for Mothers 2, as well as their debut album, which was self-titled, and that's where you can find Captain America as well. Unfortunately, they split up while writing a second album due to their label's bankruptcy, although it did get finished in 1987 when band members got to work with the help of Dave Keats and Simon Atkins and finished the second album. Oh, hang on a second. Captain America was actually a single in 1982. There you go, but it didn't do any good. So that would have been just before the album. So that one will be on Reel to Reel, not Dark Star. I should read this stuff ahead of time, really. Now, I think I'm out of time. I'm going to try and play you two more. I mentioned Persian Risk earlier when I was talking about Elixir, so this is two different. Not a bad sound at all. They were formed in 1979, hailing from Cardiff in Wales, and they were the brainchild of ex-Stone Soul Party guitarist Phil Campbell. They hung in there till 1986. In 2012, the band was reactivated by vocalist Chris Sentence, albeit without the involvement of any other past members, so it's really not the band at all, is it? Too Different was the title of an EP from 1984. They only managed 2 albums other than that. Now that really is it. I've got one more for you, but you've been listening to Radio Lewes, where the music matters. This has been The Rock Show, and this has been a special look at the new wave of British heavy metal. I've got so much of this stuff, I'm going to come back to it in a couple of weeks and do another one. But until then, thank you so much for listening. My name's been Ben Fuller. I'm going to leave you with Savage, and We Got the Edge.